Welcome to Crime Secrets, the channel where real investigations and shocking true crime stories are brought to life. FBI officers were deeply concerned when they realized that even if someone inside Alcatraz was momentarily given freedom of movement, escaping the island itself was still nearly impossible. This raised a historic question. How did 3 prisoners manage to leave their cells, move through a fortified prison structure, and disappear under the watchful eyes of trained authorities? What shocked investigators even more was that for nearly 10 hours, no one inside Alcatraz had the slightest idea that anyone was missing. In response, the FBI and 3 top-level federal agencies launched a coordinated investigation, committed to reconstructing every step of the event. This was not just another jailbreak. It was a case that has remained unresolved for more than 60 years and continues to stand as one of the most studied prison escapes in American history. What happened on that island has become a global mystery. Alcatraz was a small island in the Pacific Ocean, covering only 22 acres, yet it housed some of the most dangerous criminals of the 20th century. The facility itself was built directly on a massive rock formation, which earned it the famous nickname, The Rock. The island was surrounded by cold and unpredictable ocean waters. And for additional security, a 15-foot-high fence was installed around the perimeter, along with 24/7 surveillance of all surrounding waterways. Because the prison sat at the mouth of the Pacific, strong winds, rapid currents, and powerful waves constantly battered its shores, creating natural barriers far stronger than concrete walls. In 1934, due to these unique conditions, the island was officially declared a federal penitentiary and strengthened with even higher security measures. Once inside Alcatraz, escape was considered nearly impossible. But on the night of June 11, 1962, that reputation was shattered when 3 inmates disappeared. The first 2 were brothers, John and Clarence Anglin, sent to Alcatraz after committing multiple bank robberies. The third was Frank Morris, a highly intelligent inmate with a long history of incarceration. He had been in and out of prisons for over 13 years and was transferred to Alcatraz due to repeated escape attempts. Finally, there was Allen West, another inmate known for trying to escape from previous institutions, which is why he was placed in Alcatraz's maximum security environment. Each of these men played a specific role in what became one of the most sophisticated and enduring escape mysteries ever documented. Allen West had been inside Alcatraz for a long period of time, which meant he understood the prison's internal structure better than most inmates. Because of this knowledge, he was the first to suggest the idea of an escape back in 1960. According to West, there were small, overlooked weaknesses within the facility that might make an exit possible. This early observation would later become the foundation for one of the most studied escape attempts in American history. A unique challenge, however, stood in their way. The 4 men did not live in the same cell block and could not easily coordinate face-to-face. They would briefly meet during lunch breaks, but these moments were too short to form a detailed plan. Knowing this, they repeatedly requested transfers, hoping to be placed closer together. Over time, through patience and opportunity, all 4 were eventually moved into the same area of the prison, allowing them to begin their planning in complete secrecy. For the next 2 years, the men quietly developed their escape strategy inside their cells, undetected by guards or staff. Then, on the morning of June 12, 1962, during the routine roll call, prison staff noticed that 3 prisoners were missing. When guards returned to inspect the cells, they initially believed the Anglin brothers and Frank Morris were still inside, appearing to be asleep in their beds. But when the guards lifted the blankets for confirmation, the truth became clear. Those were not the prisoners at all, but carefully constructed dummy heads made from soap, plaster, paint, and a concrete mixture. One of the dummy heads even fell and shattered on the floor during inspection, a moment captured in an evidence photograph that later became iconic in the investigation. The discovery stunned the entire staff, and a full island-wide search was immediately launched, yet not a single trace of the 3 men was found. The escape seemed impossible, leading investigators to question how these inmates could disappear from one of the most secure facilities ever built. The absence of Allen West among the missing prisoners added another layer of mystery. He had remained behind. When the FBI and investigation teams arrived, they quickly identified how the escape likely unfolded. Each of the men had carved through a small ventilation grate in the back wall of their cells, creating an opening large enough to slip through. These vents were not isolated. In total, 4 such openings existed, forming a hidden route the prisoners had exploited with improvised tools. Alan West's vent did not open on the night of the escape, leaving him trapped inside his cell with no realistic chance of joining the others. Realizing that his situation was hopeless and that remaining silent would only increase suspicion, West chose to cooperate fully with investigators. He explained that the entire escape concept had been his idea from the beginning. He admitted to crafting the dummy heads and attaching real hair taken from the prison barbershop to make them appear lifelike. On the back wall of each of the 4 cells was a small ventilation opening measuring approximately 5 by 9.5 inches. Because West had worked in the prison's maintenance department, he was familiar with structural weaknesses that other inmates and even staff did not notice. He knew that the concrete walls behind the cells were only 6 inches thick, making it possible to widen the vent openings gradually without drawing attention. For months, all 4 inmates quietly searched for opportunities to work around these vents and expand them. To begin enlarging the vents, they used spoons taken from the prison kitchen, scraping away concrete piece by piece. As time passed, their tools became more advanced. West revealed that they created a makeshift drill by removing the motor from a prison vacuum cleaner. To cover the sound of drilling, they positioned musical instruments in front of the opening, creating enough ambient noise to avoid detection. Once the vents were widened, they opened into an unsecured utility corridor hidden behind the cells. From this corridor, a vertical drain pipe provided a direct route to the roof of the cell block. Prisoners were occasionally sent to the roof for assigned maintenance duties, and the escape team used these moments to memorize every structural detail. After reaching the roof, they climbed down another pipe and then scaled a 15-foot perimeter fence, completing one of the most difficult phases of their escape plan. The men had also prepared an inflatable raft by stitching together rubber raincoats issued by the prison. They used the same material to create life jackets. According to West, the plan was to paddle toward Angel Island, located north of Alcatraz, where security was minimal. After reaching the island, they intended to change clothes, steal a car, and disappear into mainland California. However, a thorough search around Alcatraz and nearby areas revealed no stolen vehicles, clothing thefts, or suspicious activity. Because of this lack of evidence, authorities began to question whether the men ever made it across the strong tides, leading to the possibility that they drowned before reaching land. Yet West's story did not fully satisfy the FBI. In the months following the escape, investigators discovered several pieces of debris that raised new questions. Wooden fragments believed to be part of a raft, along with 2 homemade bags crafted from raincoats, were recovered. These bags contained personal items, such as family photographs and letters objects prisoners would rarely abandon willingly. This created a compelling yet troubling possibility, while the escape was executed with precision. The final journey across the water may have ended before the men reached safety. Despite extensive land and water searches carried out by multiple federal agencies, no bodies were ever recovered, leaving investigators without a definitive conclusion even decades later. This absence of physical evidence opened the door to a second theory that the prisoners may have successfully reached the mainland and managed to survive after their 1962 escape. Because of this possibility, the FBI maintained close surveillance on the Anglin family for years. During these observations, the FBI learned from a nephew, David Widner, that John and Clarence's older brother reportedly told their sisters the 2 escapees were safe and still communicating indirectly. Several relatives also mentioned seeing 2 mysterious women attending family gatherings, wearing heavy makeup, and behaving unusually, which they believed might have been disguises used by John and Clarence to avoid detection during secret visits. 15 years after the escape, a new claim surfaced when a family member stated they had seen the brothers in a club in Brazil and even obtained a photograph of the encounter. The family was convinced the individuals in the photo were the Anglin brothers. However, when U.S. Marshals examined the image, they concluded that the facial features did not conclusively match the fugitives, keeping the case in a state of uncertainty. Even with these accounts, no verified evidence has ever confirmed the Anglin brothers' location or whether they survived their journey beyond Alcatraz's shoreline. The prison officially closed in 1979, and the FBI eventually ended its involvement in the case. Yet the U.S. Marshals Service continues to keep the file open to this day, maintaining its status until the escapees are found or definitive proof of their fate is discovered. Today, Alcatraz stands transformed into a national park, where visitors can walk through the same narrow corridors and examine the same cells once occupied by the Anglin brothers and Frank Morris. Tourists can view the escape route, the ventilation shafts, and the reconstructed dummy heads that played a central role in the breakout, witnessing firsthand the environment that shaped one of the most debated prison mysteries in American history. And as with many unresolved historical events, the final chapter of this story remains unwritten. Whether the men perished in the cold waters surrounding the island or stepped into new identities far from us authority, the truth continues to elude investigators and historians alike. What remains is a mystery that has lasted more than 60 years, one that still fascinates experts, detectives, and the public around the world.